Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Let's give folks a minute here to tune in, and then we'll get started shortly. While you're waiting, if you want, post where you're joining from in the chat so we can say hello. Awesome. I'm seeing folks from all over the US, some from other countries, Spain, the UK, South Africa. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in.
I saw Ann Arbor, Michigan, so I have to say go blue.
Love it. Oh, so many people joining. Awesome. Well, you're in for a treat today. We are going to get started now. So welcome to the Jobcast. There is a rapid growth happening in the tech industry. It's open to talent, and there's a high demand for tech skills in almost any field you can think of. So despite being hit hard in 2020, the tech job market has bounced back, with the number of job postings in software development more than 68% higher than pre-pandemic baseline back in February 2020. And IT operations and help desk job postings are more than 32% higher. So if you're a coding bootcamp graduate, entry-level developer, or are just interested in pursuing a career in tech, you're in the right place, because in this workshop, our panel of experts will be covering how to make your tech resume stand out so you can get hired. Before we begin, I'll cover a few housekeeping items here. First, you're in listen only mode. So you can hear and see us, but we can't hear or see you. So don't worry, we're recording, but remember, it's just us being recorded, not you. And we'll share that recording in a few days. I'll also be posting links to relevant resources in the chat so that you can go deeper on specific topics that are of interest to you, but don't feel obligated to be actively clicking on every link if that's going to be distracting for you. All of those links, along with the slides, will be shared via email after the presentation if you registered. And finally, we'll be using the Q&A feature for those of you in Zoom. So an important note, if you post a question, your name will be shown unless you check the box to send anonymously. So if you don't check that box, your name and questions will be associated and seen publicly during the webinar. That's because you will all be able to upvote questions that are posted on Zoom to be answered live. So just give the question a thumbs up, and we'll talk through the top voted questions at the end. So stay tuned for that. And please only post questions that are going to be relevant for others. That's what's going to get it upvoted and answered by the panel. And if we don't get to your question at the end, you can post it later as a comment on the YouTube video, so our Indeed team can respond there. So don't worry. I am Brandy Warwis from Indeed's Job Seeker Experience team. We're responsible for creating helpful resources and events like this Jobcast for our users like you. Joining us today, we have special guests Tinu, Ashley, and Alex. Why don't you all introduce yourselves?
Thank you so much, Brandy. I'm super excited for today's conversation and to have it with you lovely ladies. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Tinu. I'm a career strategist and certified resume writer. One fun fact about me, even though I am in tech, I'm also an engineer. I received my first high-paying job utilizing Indeed.com. So I'm super excited about that. You can also connect with me through Tailored by Tinu or Career Queens on Clubhouse.
Awesome. Thanks, Tinu. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Stevens. I am a senior technical recruiter here at Indeed, and I hire technical candidates to work for Indeed. I've been here for about 5.5 years. I've been recruiting for over 10 years, and I am located in Colorado.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Briggs, and I am the segment manager for technology occupations at Indeed. So as the segment manager for tech, I'm responsible for improving the experience of our site to help job seekers get jobs within tech. And personally, while I didn't major in a technical field in college, I was able to successfully break into the tech industry and product management. And I am sitting here in Austin, Texas.
Thanks, everyone. Really excited for this panel of experts. So let's jump right in.
Yes, let's do that. All right. So many of you are wondering, how can I prove that I'm a top tech talent? Oh, you've been sending out thousands of resumes and you haven't been hearing back. Well, we've all been there. I know Alex has, Ashley has, Brooke has. There's so many of us that have been doing that. Okay. So you're qualified, but what's happening? Well, you need to beat that resume algorithm. What we're going to be doing is showing you how you can make an impression to recruiters so you can get that dream job. All right. Your resume should have a simple layout with clearly marked sections. The resume that you see on the right-hand side is clearly formatted. It starts with your name and contact information and a link to your portfolio. As you can see here, you'll see the GitHub URL. Your skills should be organized for readability. If I only have about 6 to 10 seconds to look at it, you should have a professional summary section, followed by your professional experience section, your education, and other relevant information. For example, awards, certifications, and professional development. You must tailor your resume to be ATS friendly. You may be asking yourself, what is the ATS? Well, I was like you. I didn't know what the ATS was as well. ATS stands for the Applicant Tracking System. And believe it or not, for those of you who do know what the ATS is, the ATS is your friend. The ATS scans resumes and filters for qualified candidates, and it compares skills listed on your resume with keywords and phrases mentioned in the job listing. So it's really important to keyword optimize your resume. The more keywords you have on your resume, the likelier that you will get a call back from a recruiter or hiring manager. You must flag resumes that have been overused. The ATS also flags resumes that are over-optimized and keywords that have just been copy and pasted into the resume. So don't try to trick the system. All right. So right now we have an example of a resume on the left-hand side that hasn't been keyword optimized. And then we have an example of a resume that's definitely going to have that call back. So we do know the resume on the left-hand side is very pretty, and we have a very pretty candidate here, but you don't want to have images, pictures, or anything really task-based. You want to have something that can be simple and easy to read for the ATS, as well as the hiring manager and the recruiter. We'll definitely get right into that.
Yes. So this is what we mean when we say make your resume ATS friendly. You know, it's tempting to use a pretty template. We were talking about how when we were all right out of college, we had those, you know, nicely designed, colorful, formatted resumes like on the left there. But we know that simple formats like the one on the right are going to serve you better. They make better use of the limited real estate you have on the page and are easier for both the recruiter and the ATS to digest. So before we go into depth on the individual sections of the resume, let's talk about the jobs you're applying for, since resumes should be as tailored to the job as possible.
I am, definitely guilty of having a PDF resume that I thought looked creative and cool and fun, was not serving me as it could have been. So within tech, specifically software development, proficiency in specific skills and technologies is often less important than demonstrating one's ability to learn. Every company uses a different tech stack, and as such, it's somewhat expected that new hires will have to upskill when they enter a position. But with this being the case, how can we be sure that our experience aligns with the requirements of the job and appropriately reflect our experience within our applications. So firstly, I want to emphasize that demonstrating quantifiable impact within the experience section of our resume is uber important. We'll go over this in detail later during this webinar. Responsibilities of a job are generally pretty obvious, especially in technical roles. Recruiters and hiring managers understand the requirements and responsibilities of a software developer or a help desk manager. So while it may be counterintuitive, demonstrated impact actually enables someone who is reviewing your resume to identify soft skills like ability to learn, strategic thinking, decisiveness, and empathy. It's also critically important to distinguish between hard requirements and soft requirements within a job description. So hard requirements are requirements without which a candidate cannot be considered and will often be indicated with the words must have or required. Soft requirements are generally indicated by words like nice to have, preferred, and desired. It's important to remember that if you do not meet all of the soft requirements of a job description, you are not inherently unqualified. Go ahead and apply for jobs for which you meet all of the hard requirements and truly think of the soft requirements as bonus points, things that may set one candidate apart from another, and pick out all of the requirements that you do meet from both sections, hard and soft, and make sure that they are clearly demonstrated on your resume. Employers within tech will often list multiple programming languages and technologies to ensure that their jobs are easily found. They want to make sure that somebody who is searching Python jobs will find their job. They want to make somebody who's looking for C# jobs see their job. So they'll just list a ton of programming languages and technologies. So while it may seem obvious, when scanning job descriptions, be sure to look out for ors instead of ands. For example, if a job description states that programming know-how is required in either JavaScript or C# Java or Python, you only need one of those languages. But if you just quickly scan the job description and you miss the ors, it may lead you to thinking that you're unqualified for a position when you are in fact qualified. If I had to give one piece of advice today to y'all about using Indeed, I would encourage everyone to use filters. I find that a lot of job seekers underutilize filters, which are an incredible way to quickly and effectively find jobs which meet your personal job requirements. So like employers, we also have our own hard and soft requirements for a job. Like a job for me, hard requirement might be the location. I might be open to the skills that the job requires or the skills that I want to use and learn. There's type of work, there's pay. And while the power dynamics of a job search can often be intimidating, your personal requirements are equally as important as the requirements within a job description. Plus, filters also mean that you don't have to worry about being perfectly search savvy. I know there are a lot of people out there who are always looking for the phrase that will help them find the perfect jobs. But with filters, once you've searched for a term or a set of terms, you're able to narrow your search to jobs that match your specific skill set without having to, have typed in the perfect phrase. And what's really cool about Indeed is that every time you search a job within a field, you'll see filters that are specific to the field that you're searching for. So there are different filters, let's say for software developers versus UX designers, they're going to see different technologies there. And IT, they'll see certifications and they'll also see different technologies to filter from.
Alex, I totally agree with you. I remember applying for my first tech position. What really helped me was the date posted filter. I always tell my clients, if you press within the last 24 hours, you're likely to get a call back from a recruiter or a hiring manager very quickly.
Definitely, I always recommend that as well. So we are talking kind of from the lens of people that are already within tech or already know that they're definitely interested in tech. But I know that there are some people here today that are looking to break into the tech industry or are sort of ideating on going into tech. Those of us who might not necessarily have experience already in the field that we're interested in. And this may seem a little weird, but I think reviewing job descriptions is a really great way to think about your next move. Searching for the position that you want to be in next and reviewing job descriptions will help you understand what skills are required and what you're currently missing. And then once you're ready to apply, again, be sure to pick out those hard and soft requirements from the job description that you do meet. And then once you have this list of requirements that you do meet, be sure they are represented in the skills section of your resume. So most importantly, these skills need to be organized in a clear and readable format. Oftentimes, I see job seekers probably hoping to keyword optimize their resume, listing their skills in like a giant block of text, a giant paragraph. And while an ATS may still parse out these words, it's not going to help you at all in demonstrating competency to a recruiter or a hiring manager. Remember what we said before, you have 7.4 seconds to make an impression. So you don't want someone reviewing your resume to waste 7.4 seconds trying to digest a giant block of text as opposed to focusing on the other content or just not getting to your skills at all. For tech, since we often have varying levels of experience with programming languages or frameworks, like maybe I took a course in a certain language in college and I haven't used it since. One of the ways I recommend organizing your skills is into tiers based on proficiency. It doesn't matter how you gain those skills, you should be showcasing them on your resume. We recommend anywhere, if you're going to use this method, from 2 to 4 tiers. Ideas for subheaders include familiar, advanced, and expert, intermediate and advanced, proficient and familiar. I've seen some people use years of experience as a subheader. So they'll say, I have 1+ years of experience in these technologies, 3+ years of experience in these. And be sure to include any proficiencies you have in programming languages, frameworks, databases, front-end tools, back-end tools, and applications connected via APIs. Even relevant personal self-improvement that you've undertaken to grow your skills that you haven't necessarily used in a job. Any tools that you've used to grow your software development proficiency. And you can still also showcase your soft skills as well in this section. When employers read your resume, they're looking for any clues about what kind of employee you'll be like. And this shows them that you're organized and honest if you are clearly denoting whether you have basic experience in something or expert experience. And lastly, if you're applying for a job where a specific skill is often taken for granted, don't list it. And I know this is basically contradicting what I just said, but I think when I give you an example, it'll make a lot of sense. The biggest offender by far is Microsoft Office. So experience with Microsoft Office for all jobs is generally assumed. And including Microsoft Office may imply to a recruiter or a hiring manager that you don't understand the requirements or responsibilities of the role to which you're applying. Instead, if you do think it is really relevant to the job that you're applying to, focus on proficiencies within that skill. So I know, for example, in strategy roles, modeling within Excel is an incredibly important skill to have. So instead of listing Microsoft Office, you could list macros, pivot tables, and VLOOKUPs specifically to show that you know how to do these things in Excel, as opposed to just mentioning Microsoft Excel, which seems like a very basic and implied skill.
Alex, you hit the nail on the head. So you talked about like that blob of skills just put together. You want to make sure that your skills are organized. A tech resume is going to be different from any other resume that you see. Here, I have an example of an unorganized skill section. We see time management, C++, leadership. So we have soft skills, we have programming languages, and they're all just put together. I only have 6 to 10 seconds to look at your resume. All right, let's see how a skill section should look like. You want to make sure your skill section is organized. You can create a core competency section agile development, remote leadership, application testing. You can talk about the programming languages you have, C++, HTML, and so forth. There are other applications that you can talk about: SharePoint, Google Analytics, Sybase, and GitHub. And then you can take it a step further and talk about the operating systems that you do know, such as Windows, Linux, or Mac OS.
So for those of you that are ideating about careers in technology, we've just listed some of the in-demand skills for technology careers that are worth pursuing. And also for those of you that are in tech, want to remind you that some of these skills may not be, I guess, intuitive for you to add. For me, I'm in product. I think every product manager must know user testing. That seems obvious, but it really isn't. And it's a key skill within product development. So don't be afraid to list these skills, as obvious as they may seem, if you do have experience with them.
All right, so we're building up on this resume. Now, after the skills, we're getting to the work experience section. Your work experience section needs to be keyword optimized. It needs to show achievements. It needs to have impact. Alex talked about this. Impact adds value to the company that you want to apply for, especially if it's your dream job. You want to call attention to important achievements and projects. You want to use numbers to measure your impact. Trust me, I love dollar signs, and who doesn't? You want to use active language. You want to stay away from responsible for or performed. Use active verbs such as accountable, increased, or boosted. You want to use keywords from job postings. Like I said, the more keywords you have inside of your resume that are relevant to your job description, the likelier a hiring manager or recruiter will call you back for that interview. Let me show you how I create achievement-based bullet points for my clients. Indeed also loves utilizing the WHO method. The WHO method is something that you might not know, but I'll explain it to you. It's actually pretty easy. It's what you have done, it's how you have done it, and the outcomes related to your work. So we don't want to just be looking at tasks on your resume. That's not how you stand out. Let's see the WHO method in action. So what we have right here is just an example, just to get us started. Instead of saying that you've answered phone calls from customers, you want to say that you've answered phone calls and provided excellent customer service to improve customer satisfaction. So we kind of leveled up with this task-based sentence. So it's no longer task-based. We can take it a step further and add metrics. Instead of saying that, you can say answered 100 calls per day and provided excellent customer service, helping increase customer satisfaction scores from 78% to 89%. So now we have what we have done, how we have done it, and the outcome. And then we took it a further step and we added metrics. So you see the numbers, you see the percentages, and if you want to, you can also add dollar signs wherever applicable. All right, so right now we wanted to show you how you can apply the WHO method to a tech resume. So we have pretty good task-based bullet points here, but if you want to have that competitive edge, utilize the WHO framework. Instead of saying that you've developed product, build, engineering, and created adequate documentation, you can say that you streamlined business and software development processes by developing project build, engineering, and group policy by creating adequate documentation. And here we started with the outcome. It's great to start with the achievement. In our next example, instead of saying practice agile development methodologies with current networking technologies, you can say you increased stakeholder collaboration 40% by practicing agile development methodologies with current networking technologies. In our last example that we have here, instead of using this task, you can say produced high quality releases and accelerated product releases 20% by leading the solutions engineering and system redesigns, eliminating costly complexities and tailored by TNU technologies. So as you can see in each example, we're describing what we have done, how we have done it, and the outcomes. And essentially, it's the benefit of the task that you have done.
Okay, so I want to pause here before we move on to the education section so that we can just take a question that came up during the presentation so far. So the top question right now is, how can we test if our resume is ATS friendly? So one way, and I'll pose this to the rest of the panel as well, but my suggestion, and we'll get into this a little bit later with Ashley, is to create your resume or put your resume on Indeed. It's going to put all of your information into an ATS friendly format for you. So that's a really easy way to do it. Are there any other ways that y'all recommend?
Yeah, one way I would actually tell the job seeker is you can actually save your resume as a text file. And if you see no words, it is not ATS friendly.
Yeah, that's a good solution to just do a quick check for an existing resume.
It is a quick check.
That's a really, really good idea, Tinu. I'm like, I should have been doing this whole time as well.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, but I mean, I save a lot of time by just using Indeed's platform. So if it parses well, you'll know that your resume is ATS friendly or not. So you want to stay away from those highly formatted resumes, as we shown earlier in the presentation.
Yeah, and someone posted in the chat, and I agree with them, remove columns or tables. That definitely is one way that they get flagged. I know some resumes look great formatted, but for an example, the previous ATS I used, any formatted resume came over like symbols, and everything was out of character. So I would recommend removing those. Like Tunu said, do text-based wording, and then take off any type of things that may be not formatted to like a Word resume.
Definitely. And one other thing that I know Ashley will get into a little bit later regarding formatting, but if you're using a special font that's not on everyone's computer, that might also show up weird. And then even if your resume is perfectly formatted to one page, it might kick it to multiple pages because it auto defaults to a different font or something like that. So the moral of the story is keep it simple, and you should be okay with the ATS. Great. So let's move on to the next section of your resume, education. Alex.
Awesome. And I did see some questions about this in the Q&A too. So I'm glad that I'm able to get to them. So generally, education should be listed towards the end of your resume, unless you are still in school or a recent graduate. As you progress through your career, you should be including fewer and fewer education details. Your practical experience is much more important to employers, and education details often take up valuable space on a one-page resume. And I know y'all have been there where you're trying to find every extra character that you can get in to fit everything. If you are a recent graduate or currently in school, it is appropriate to keep your education at the top of your resume, along with relevant projects you've completed as part of your coursework. These projects should be treated just like a job in the experience section. So you should describe quantifiable impact as a result of the project, as opposed to the responsibilities or description of the project itself. Ageism. Unfortunately, very, very real, especially within tech. which we know is a field generally dominated by by younger generations. And as such, it is absolutely okay to not include your year of graduation if it is not within the last 10 years, to just prevent any sort of automatic bias. We also don't recommend including your college GPA unless it was a 3.5 out of 4. Including a GPA below a 3.5 out of 4 may work against you. And professional development, including online courses that were not for college credit, should be listed in a separate section. So if you've taken 15 Mooc courses, I wouldn't list every course out. This again takes up valuable space that could be used for experience and impact, which is so much more valuable to employers. However, I know in technology, it is great to demonstrate that you are invested in learning and upskilling. So skills that you've learned from those courses can be included in the skills section, like we were talking about before, as opposed to education or professional development. And groups of courses or certificate programs, certifications are appropriate to list in a separate professional development section. So let's go ahead. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that you bring up a good point about ageism. And I know I look sweet 16, but I do not. I've graduated more than 5 years ago. I do not put my the year of graduation on my resume. And one tip that I would like for the job seekers to listen to is you don't want to start adding in dates that are past 15 years. That's super, super important because it does exist in the job search process. So that was a great point, Alex.
Also, you said more than 5 years, and 5 years ago, my life just flashed before my eyes.
Right? Where did it go?
No, I cannot say the same. It was a lot longer than that. So let's go ahead and dive deeper into professional development. So I know I mentioned Moocs before offhandedly, and I want to take the time to break down some of these professional development opportunities. So Moocs are massive open online courses. So Mooc, M-O-O-C. They are massive because thousands of students can take the same course at the same time. They are open to anyone who registers, regardless of their academic experience, and they are fully online. Coursera and edX are the largest and most reputable Moocs, as they've partnered with prestigious universities to provide course content. So really, you're basically auditing actual college courses. They've recorded these courses and you have the opportunity to watch them online. And what I in particular love about Moocs is that they are a great way, maybe the best way, I think, to dip your toes into something without significant financial commitment. So most Mooc courses are free. There are some that are actually offered for college credit, but the vast majority are free and allow you to explore a subject before, let's say, entering a bootcamp program. So if you're interested in coding, for example, and you don't know where to start, Moocs are a fantastic, fantastic way to get an introduction. And they're also a great way to upskill on specific topics within technology, like machine learning. So let's go ahead and talk about boot camps, which are an increasingly popular means of entering and upskilling within tech. We know that according to HackerRank's annual survey, nearly 1 in 3 hiring managers have hired a bootcamp grad. And boot camps, if you are unfamiliar, are intensive programs for software development, for UX and UI, for product management, for IT. There are tons of different boot camps out there, and some are online courses, some are in-person courses, and some are hybrid. The length varies pretty significantly too. Some are 8 weeks, some are 36. I think the average is around 12, but they are a full-time commitment. Certainly some people do boot camps and work, but you have to think of it like going to college. You are taking a full course load. You will have homework. It is an intensive that you are in for a period of time. Some of these do work with corporate partners and can help with placements. But I just want to stress, be incredibly thorough in researching boot camps, because there are a lot of scammy programs out there that will offer fake internships or falsely advertise career resources, employment statistics. So if you are interested in a boot camp, have frank conversations with alumni about their experiences. Do they feel that they were adequately prepared for their first job in the industry? What was their experience like trying to find work after graduation? And do your research online. There are tons of great sites that aggregate reviews on boot camps, that rank boot camps. Track down as much information as you can. And all of this being said, there are very legitimate programs out there. If you're looking for a place to start, I'd personally recommend checking out the Grace Hopper program, which is specifically for women and gender nonconforming students. Full Stack Academy, which is the larger organization that supports the Grace Hopper program, and the Flatiron School. My personal, I guess, favorite opportunity, something that I'm just super excited is catching on, is apprenticeships. If you cannot afford a bootcamp program or are hesitant to make the financial investment of a bootcamp program, apprenticeships are an incredible opportunity. They will train you in a specific skill and place you in a job after you've been trained. And while apprenticeships aren't as popular in the US as they are in some other international markets, I know they're super popular in the UK, they are becoming increasingly popular in tech around the world as the demand for skilled workers rises. So to find apprenticeships, specifically search for apprenticeships along with your field of interest. If you just search for apprenticeship by itself, you'll certainly get a lot of apprenticeships in skilled trades like plumbing, things that might be completely irrelevant to you. So I do recommend still including that field of interest like software development or data science. IBM is the, I would say, corporate leader in the movement towards apprenticeships and offers a ton, but increasingly other large tech companies are offering apprenticeship programs as well. I know some professors have partnered with certain corporate sponsors as well. I know some professors from MIT have started a data science apprenticeship. So definitely worth looking into. And unlike boot camps, apprenticeships should not require any financial investment. So be wary of any programs that do require this. Legitimate job opportunities will absolutely never require you to invest money up front. Boot camps, since they are basically a course that you're taking, they do cost money. Apprenticeships should never cost you money. So what about certifications? We get questions all the time. Will this certification help me in my job search? And in general, I would say that certifications are not super valuable or relevant unless you are in IT. Outside of IT, there are certifications like the PMP certification, which is Project Management Professional. That's super popular. It can slightly boost your resume, but my general advice would be to only pursue these certifications if you already meet the experience qualifications, because a lot of them, in order to receive the certification, you have to have, let's say, 3 years of work experience or 700 hours of work experience. So I wouldn't pursue it if you don't already have that experience, and I wouldn't necessarily pursue it if you are not being reimbursed for any associated costs by your employer. And I'll also plug, particularly for IT, where certifications are super relevant, a new feature on Indeed that I am super excited about. It is in beta currently, which is indeed.com/certifications. I've used this myself and I love it. There are tons and tons of reviews of specific certifications and certificate programs on this site. And it will tell you whether or not certifications help someone progress in their career, increase their salary. Super, super useful resource. Shadowing is a great opportunity to learn new skills when observing others. And I always think it's better to observe what a job is like before deciding if it's good for you. So if you're already in a company that offers the role you're seeking, reach out to the teams that you're interested in to schedule shadowing and have an upskilling plan that you can explain to the relevant parties and your manager. Get them excited about helping you. I personally know that I just get super anxious when thinking about asking for help, whether it be shadowing opportunities or mentoring opportunities. but you really have to trust that people will not invest time in you if they don't have the time. You have to trust that they know how to manage their own time. And if they do give you that time, they are happy to do so and they want to help you. Mentoring, very similar to shadowing, but just outside of your organization. So finding a professional in a field that you want to get into and inviting them for a lunch or a virtual coffee to talk with them about where you'd like to go in your career and how you think they can help you. And again, it can be super intimidating, but people also, I mean, from a selfish perspective, I think people like the ego boost too. People they feel flattered that you're, interested in their career, and turns the tables on them, and they'll want to help you. Open source work is a great opportunity for people without actual job experience in tech. So let's say you were in a bootcamp program or you've learned skills on your own. Open source work allows you to create a portfolio that you can share with your prospective employers to, ensure that you actually have experience in the languages that you're referring to. Always recommend open source work. And then let's talk about getting your foot in the door. So we talk a lot in tech about getting your first job at a tech company. And that's usually the most difficult step in the beginning of your career in tech. I know personally, I entered Indeed with the goal of entering product management, but I knew that it was unlikely that I would be able to enter that field off the bat. And this is my fourth role at Indeed. I entered Indeed in another position with the intention of moving into product management. And, it's difficult. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to go constantly up level, but it does allow you to get your foot in the door. And the company may be willing to invest in your training and will certainly consider your applications because you are internal. So if you are really passionate, let's say, about a specific company, I would say consider entry-level roles or roles that do not require technical skills like customer support, with the intention of transferring to a different department or role once you have more experience. Again, I wouldn't recommend this if you feel really uncomfortable advocating for yourself, and it's still going to take a lot of work, but it's certainly an option.
Awesome. Thanks to Alex and Tinu. They have given some really excellent advice on how to actually structure your resume and what should be included. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some other resources that you can use to really take your resume to the next level. So this brings us to putting your resume on Indeed. So uploading your resume into your Indeed profile or building it on Indeed, your resume will automatically be in the Ats Friendly format, and can be also shared with employers on your cell phone, your tablet, your computer. I know we talk a lot about ATS, and this is why it's really important. I kind of mentioned earlier, but there are some different ATSs that just don't port things over correctly. So being able to really use and upload your resume through an Indeed resume, it automatically makes everything super seamless. So if you also want a hard copy of your resume, you can click the download resume button on the right, and it generates a PDF for you to save and print with whichever template you select. So this is often used if you have an interview that's on site somewhere and you bring a couple of copies with you to pass out to everyone. This makes that super simple. Even if you want to print it out to have in front of you while you're interviewing, you're able to do that directly through there. And then next, with Indeed resume, it's easier to apply with jobs with just a few clicks, even from your phone. I know a lot of people know how tedious it can be to apply to jobs that have 18 different steps. This makes it pretty seamless for a lot of the positions to just be able to use one click, apply, and then you can move on to the next position. And then this is really the big one. It allows employers to find you. So job seekers with an Indeed resume actually hear from employers 4 times more often than those who don't. So kind of the same way you're looking for job listings, employers and recruiters will search on Indeed's resume database to source candidates for their open roles. So to give you an idea, there are over 3 million employers globally who actually use Indeed to hire. So when your resume is set to public on Indeed, they can actually search for you. So employers use the what and where prompts to search for resumes by either job title or industry or location. And then we can kind of refine and tweak the search using filters based on whether you've also taken one of the assessments or anything like education, skills, things of that nature. So this helps us to also search for you. So we're going to give you a couple of tips here on how to make sure your resume gets the most views.
And I did want to chime in on here, Ashley. One of the things that I did when I was applying for tech positions was I made my resume public. Of course, you're going to take out that PII, but you want to job search strategically. You have to think like the ATS, think like a hiring manager or a recruiter. So if you constantly update your resume, they're going to call you back. And September is Update Your Resume Month. Recruiters are there on Indeed looking for top talent to get into their companies. So you want to keep your resume public on Indeed's job board, but make sure that you take out any information that should be private.
Yeah, thank you, Tinu. That's definitely the way to go. If you are looking at all, make sure it's set to public. And just kind of like you mentioned, if you're looking for a new job, update your resume every week or so, even if it's a little small tweak. Job seekers with Indeed resumes updated in the last week are likely to get contacted by employers. And why this is so is because it actually gets pushed to the top of our search results and labeled recently updated in big orange letters. And then also shows employers that you're actively job searching. So I actually utilize this function daily while I'm looking for candidates. I will start with who's updated their resume in the last day, and then go to the last week, and then go to the last month. So those kind of show that you're actively looking, you're actively searching, and that's more likely for people to reach out to you first. If you're open to starting a new job immediately, we also have a kind of toggle button that says ready to work, which is another way that employers can search. So we can actually click the button, the box that says, show me all of the candidates that are ready to work. And it brings up everyone with that particular feature, which is really helpful. So I highly recommend, if you're someone who is not working or your contract is ending and you need a job as soon as possible, make sure you have that turned on. And then it may seem obvious, but the most important things about your resume is that it's clean and easy to read. So while specific resume formatting may vary by different industries, these are typically some of the best practices that can be used across the board. So first, try to keep it to one page. I know it's tough, but unless you have over 10 years of experience or are in upper level management, you really need to try and keep it to one page, 2 at the absolute most. If you have your margins at either a 1/2 inch minimum, 1 inch maximum, that really helps you to utilize the entire space. And you can actually fit a lot more in there. I always tell people to remove your physical address. That is more filler that you really don't need to have on your resume, and employers don't need to know your address right up front. So I always say, keep it simple, leave it to your name, your contact information. You can put a state or a city if you're interested in that, but try and keep it as address. Another thing is to use an easy to read font throughout. So I would say no smaller than 10, no larger than 12. Apart from like the section headers and titles, those can be slightly larger. And then typically use a sans serif font. So Arial, Cambria. Try to avoid the dated fonts such as Times New Roman. That can be another way, a small thing that employers might have a little bias on. And then of course, the different fonts that are typically more kind of random to where ATSs may flag those. Another thing is make sure to bold your name and your section headers. That kind of helps when we're doing a very quick scan to look through your resume. We know exactly where to go, where your last job was, then we can kind of follow through there. And try to limit abbreviations. I know a lot of people have some abbreviations to try and fit within that one page, but that actually makes it a little harder for us to search. If we're looking for somebody that has Excel and they put EXL, we may not be able to see your resume search through that exact format. So try to limit abbreviations when possible. And then of course, the biggest tip out there, make sure you proofread. So nothing shows an employer that you don't pay attention to details like having a typo on your resume. I'm guilty of it. I actually had my title wrong, just completely like swapped and misspelled. So try reading it from the bottom up or backwards. And I'd say have a friend or two look over your resume. They can probably pick out things that, you've looked at your resume 100 times that you maybe didn't see the first time. And then I highly recommend, there's a Chrome extension called Grammarly. This is completely free to use. It will show you if you have any spelling mistakes, any grammar issues, any sentence that needs to be restructuring. And it's all around just a really good tool to utilize.
Ashley, you bring up a great point in regards to Times New Roman. It's like wearing sweatpants. And as a resume writer, and especially if you want to get into tech, you need to be very modern. You also need to be creative and innovative. So for you to stay up to date, you want to stay away from using Times New Roman as a font. And sometimes it can actually make your resume longer than it should be.
Yeah, great point. And thanks for chiming in on that. I definitely agree. So again, we don't need to recreate the wheel. Check out the resume samples that we have on Indeed Career Guide. They're super helpful. There's many to look through. We've curated resumes for all sorts of roles based on resumes that actually led to employers contacting those applicants. So those are really good samples to kind of help structure your resume based on what actually works.
Awesome. I want to talk about something that I am personally invested in because I worked on it and I'm super excited about. We recently launched a tech-specific site for resume help. The URL is shown on the screen, resume-review.indeed.com/tech. We offer 3 levels of resume review services, a free resume report that scans your resume and offers recommendations, a lower touch resume review service for $19. And if you want to keep working with Tinu or one of our other resume experts, we do have a high touch resume writing service for $89. And for those of you tuning in today, I'm super excited to say that I was able to get y'all a discount code. So we have a 20% discount code for everyone who attended the session today. If they would like to keep exploring improvements to the resume, it is JobCast 2021.
That's very timely because September is Update Your Resume month and we're about to approach the end of the year. People are hiring.
I do want to just note here that the discount code, unfortunately, this is only available in the US and Canada, the services right now, but hopefully will be in other markets soon.
And we've also launched a tech-specific site that's go.indeed.com/techjobs. And you can find a lot of the resources that we've talked about today on this site. So we have links to specific job searches. We have articles, links to the resume review service. Everything can be found in one spot. I would love to hear what you think about it. And again, that's go.indeed.com/techjobs.
Thank you, Tinu, Alex, and Ashley. So I know we're running out of time and I want to leave plenty for questions, but let's do a quick recap of all of that advice. First, use a simple resume format with clear sections to make it easier for the recruiter and the ATS to digest. Follow the WHO method to showcase your impact in past work experiences. That WHO method, again, is what did you do, how did you do it, and the outcomes related to the work. And then include relevant skills, education, and professional development activities that help showcase your ability to learn. And utilize Indeed's free tools to make applying to jobs easier and more effective. And if you want to connect with the talented Tinu, you can reach her on Instagram, her website, or email as listed here. Okay, so as a reminder, the recording of this workshop will be shared with you in a few days. You can see the live stream on the page already. And all of the links that I've shared in the chat will be shared again after the workshop, along with the slides. If you registered, you'll get an email with those. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the top questions that came in. There are a lot in the queue. So if we don't get to your question today, remember to post it later as a comment on the YouTube video so our team can respond to you there. So the first question that we have here, how do I get noticed as a rookie aspiring to be a web developer who is hoping to learn on the job? It seems like every job wants years and years of experience. So those starting out in the tech industry, any tips?
Yeah, this is frustrating, I think, for me all of the time, for everyone else who is earlier in their careers. Yeah, the 3+ years of experience, but it's an entry-level software developer role. It is super frustrating. First off, I'd say make sure that those are hard requirements and not soft requirements, because a lot of job descriptions will say 3+ years of experience preferred. They're being very sneaky, so you don't actually need 3+ years of experience. They're just trying to attract levels of talent across the spectrum. Also, I mentioned this before, open source work is a really great way to network within tech. I know Free Code Camp offers some open source work. Certainly, there are a lot of opportunities out there. I know it's not always advised to give a bunch of your time without getting paid for it, but you can volunteer for nonprofits, people that do genuinely need your help, and in doing so, make connections and have real experience that you can put on your resume. I would say keep your GitHub portfolio active and include that on your resume as well, because when you don't have that tangible job experience, the next thing that a hiring manager is going to look for is evidence that you actually know the skills that you are referring to. And there's no better way to do that than by having actual work that you can show employers.
And I definitely would love to add that you want to focus on the projects that you've done, and you can actually list them as job experiences. Another thing is you can show how you've led and added impact. So make sure that you're using active verbs on your resume. So that is definitely going to help you to and show the recruiter that you actually have work experience. And don't forget your coursework. And one more thing, for those of you who have little to no experience, you might want to consider using a functional format that's going to focus on your skills rather than how long you've worked.
Awesome. Let's do another question here. I know we talked a little bit about ageism, but the question is, I'm an older person who's trying to shift into the tech industry. I want to show experience, but I don't want employers discriminating against me because I'm not in my 20s. I haven't put dates on my education section of the resume. Is this a good idea, or will employers expect to see dates on education?
Don't do it. Don't
Nope.
put them.
I do not have dates on mine. I don't have it on my LinkedIn. I keep dates completely separate.
Yes, that's super, super important. So we want to be young as possible, just like I do as well. you do not want to go past more than 15 years. And one tip that I want to give you, your professional summary, you don't want to say that you have over 20 years of experience, even though you do. You can start by saying product manager with over 10 years of experience. So that way, you're actually eliminating the age bias that may come up during the job search process. And if you have a long professional history, you might want to limit, just maybe put 2 or 3 positions on your resume and then add the others in the additional experience section. So if you worked in 1974, you can take that date out. Or even if it's 2004 or 5 or 6, you can take those dates out.
Another thing too, you don't have to list every single job you've ever had. I only have my last 10 years of work experience listed on my resume. So if you have, 30 years of experience, but only 10 of that was relevant to what you're actually targeting, then just leave that. And like Tinu said, you can have a separate section that says additional work experience and maybe have like the title and the company. You don't have to put any type of bullets or anything of that nature if you want to show that you have, more professional experience. But I would say keep it structured and set to what you've done previously. And that can really help kind of eliminate any type of biases.
I do see some people saying in the chat that a lot of sites require a date. That is true. I'll say that right away. Applying to jobs, I have noticed that before as well. One thing about Indeed, and this is certainly something I would recommend, if you upload your resume and then you apply using that resume, you don't have to fill in any forms that will require you to put in dates. And that's certainly a way to get around that. I know that can be a super frustrating experience for people.
Yeah, and I will say that we've done a whole webinar dedicated to avoiding ageism in the job search process. So I dropped that link in the chat. So be sure to check that out if that's something you're concerned about. There are a number of tips aside from removing education dates that might be helpful for you. And the next question is somewhat related to that. So with nearly 25 years of experience in the IT industry, how do I overcome the "you're overqualified" response to my applications? If I didn't want the job, I wouldn't be applying for it, right? So how do you prevent people from just seeing you as overqualified?
All right, so that's a great question. Sometimes you may be overqualified when you don't tailor your resume to the job description. So that's going to be extremely important. You don't want to add, different positions, even though you're in tech. There's so many. Tech is very vague. So everything that you post inside of your resume, your content, it has to be tailored to the job description. So like we said, we don't have to add that, we were a junior developer. And Ashley even said it. She only adds her last 10 years of experience. But in those 10 years, it has to be everything that's relevant to the job description. So if the job description is asking for project management, but you're maybe putting product development, then that's probably adding more than what you need. So just keep it simple.
Yeah, I agree with Tinu there. And I'd say another thing too is, and this is a little more tedious and takes more time, but make sure if you have some sort of a summary, you're keeping an eye on which positions you're applying for. I've seen many people that have a summary. I'm looking for a vice president position, and then they apply to a more junior role. And so that right there is kind of like, they said they want the vice president, position. So that isn't so much age as it is, what you're looking for. So I would kind of limit that. I would honestly leave out on the summary if you're applying to a lot of positions. Unless you're targeting kind of the same position, that should be helpful.
Agreed. I personally don't use a professional summary. I think they are totally optional. If there is an achievement that you really want to highlight, perhaps that's the place to do it, but it's absolutely not required. And that's a great way to avoid some of that.
Yeah, I agree. Unless you're switching jobs and you want to show, I'm applying for this intentionally, I want to get into this field, then otherwise I think I don't have it on mine either.
Cool. I know we're over time. I want to take a couple more questions here since there are some good ones. Should you include projects in your portfolio on your resume, or only real world work experience? Now, I know we talked about this a little, but do you want to expand on that, Alex?
It depends. So if you are currently in school, if you recently graduated, if you're a career changer and you don't have real world work experience, absolutely include those projects. If you are at the point in your career where you have real world work experience, you should never, I guess, prioritize the project over the real world work experience unless I don't know, did a personal project for Bill Gates or something, I don't know, but it would have to be truly extraordinary to win out over that real experience that you do have. That's what employers prefer. So I would never prioritize projects over real world experience. And again, if you do have experience, let's say in a junior developer role, and it's enough to fill your resume, don't include projects.
We'll take one more question here. I've noticed in recent months that the roles in tech are changing, and that's definitely true, continuing to evolve. For example, graphic design is now UX, etc. So where can we go to keep up with the changes in nomenclature? Now, I will say straight off the bat, look at job postings. I know we talked about that with the keywords. Those are important keywords. If you find that they're using certain terms in the job postings that are different from what you have on your resume because that language has evolved over time, make sure you're updating your resume to match the new keywords there. Any other tips?
Yeah, I agree with, sorry. I agree with that. I think if you have a different title, but it's very similar and basically the same as the title that is being used currently, if you don't want to change your title to reflect that exactly, use a little dash and put both of them on there, because that way it can show that you're actually doing that, but you can be sourced and pulled up when people are searching for that term, but you can also keep your actual title on there as well.
I also would push back on that a little bit. For graphic design and UX I would say it's like a square and a rectangle. Graphic design is a skill that's needed for UX, but UX is so much more than just graphic design. And certainly having experience in graphic design is helpful in qualifying for a UX role, but working in UX also requires experience in user stories, user research, prototyping, so many things beyond just graphic design, which is generally assumed to be just designing, let's say, logos or artwork. So I think some of that is probably just an increase in responsibilities. Same with technical writing and coding. Certainly technical writers have always had to understand the basic mechanics of the products that they're writing about, but it's possible that a company wants you to have, I guess, a step higher when it comes to your understanding. They want you to be able to have a basic understanding of the code that they're providing, depends on what the product is. So I would think of that more as an expansive responsibilities than a job title switch.
Yeah, agreed. And thanks for calling that out. Definitely don't add an additional title if you're not doing the work. So for example, if I'm a technical recruiter, some people are calling it talent acquisition. That's used interchangeably. So that would be a good example for when to use that.
Great call outs there. Yeah. And if you are someone, for instance, who has a graphic design background but wants to get into UX, check out those programs that Alex mentioned around professional development, whether it's certification or a Mooc open source projects, whatever it is, so that you can up level, like we said, so that you can apply to those jobs. Okay, so I know we are definitely over time now. So I want to thank everyone for participating today. If you found this to be helpful, check out our other jobcasts at indeed.com/jobcast and follow Indeed on social media. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Tinu, Alex, Ashley, for your time today and for all the great advice.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.